This story unfolds during my teenage years when I resided with my parents, brother, sister, and grandmother. A shadow lingered from the past. My younger sister and grandfather had tragically perished in a car accident several years prior. Following the incident, we decided to change our residence. Our new home, though more spacious, retained a comforting, cozy ambience. On a particular Halloween, our entire family gathered in the living room, where a flickering fire illuminated the space, and we settled in for an evening movie. Upstairs, Grandma chose to stay in her bedroom, feeling tired and opting for a quiet time of reading and relaxation. Late into the night, the stream of trick-or-treaters had dwindled, and we were engrossed in the movie, about 30 minutes in, when an unexpected shriek echoed from upstairs. It was Grandma. Without hesitation, a wave of panic swept over us, propelling the entire family upstairs. Ascending the staircase, the sounds of sobbing and Grandma exclaiming, "It's you! It's really you!" filled the air, intensifying our apprehension. Repeating it in a hoarse cry, Grandma's words hung in the air as we hurried to her room. Upon entering, a distressing scene unfolded. Grandma had collapsed on the floor, her back against the wall. Her pallor was strikingly different, and an expression of both bliss and excitement adorned her face. Across the room, a figure dressed in an old-fashioned suit, hat in hand, stood my grandfather. The room fell silent as we grappled with the astonishment and disbelief of his unexpected presence. If I possessed the knowledge I have now, I would have demanded him to leave our house right then. But in that moment, speech eluded us. Breaking the silence, my mom succumbed to tears. The sight of her father again proved overwhelming. In contrast, my grandfather, smiling warmly, offered reassurance amid the stunned and speechless atmosphere. Grandma proceeded to recount the unfolding events. While in her room preparing for bed, she heard a tapping on the window. Startled, she turned to find Grandpa peering at her. She clarified that such occurrences weren't new. When you lose someone, glimpses of them seem to appear everywhere. However, this time felt distinct. Grandpa remained, gesturing her to the window, signaling a difference. With a mixture of trepidation and curiosity, Grandma opened the window and welcomed Grandpa inside. He spoke to us, sharing insights into the afterlife and recounting stories from the other side. Grandpa described its beauty and emphasized how the reality surpassed all our wildest dreams. I harbored skepticism, yet the sheer joy of seeing my grandpa compelled me to set aside my internal doubts. He conveyed that spirits could return to the living world when the timing aligned. Apologizing for the delay in his visits, he explained that he had attempted many times before but lacked the necessary experience until this year. Despite my initial skepticism, we all believed his words. After the revelations, we collectively decided to give my grandparents the space to catch up. Grandpa turned to Grandma, extending his hand, and with a warm, friendly smile, he said, "I've got a lot to tell you. Come with me." She accepted his hand, and hand in hand, they strolled down the hall, disappearing from view. The rest of us returned downstairs, still unsettled by the profound encounter. We lingered in silence by the fire, the occasional trick-or-treater stopping by even less frequently than before. Gradually, conversation and laughter resumed, almost as if there weren't a ghost upstairs. Surprisingly, it turned out to be one of the best nights we had spent together in years. Around 11 p.m., the doorbell chimed once more. Given the lateness, we weren't anticipating any more children. From outside the front door, a cheerful cry of trick or treat rang out, prompting my mom to answer. As she swung the door open, she abruptly froze. Standing on the doorstep was a young girl adorned in a pink princess outfit. Innocently, the girl inquired, "What's wrong, Mommy?" My father and older siblings exchanged glances before rushing to the front door. When I arrived, my heart skipped a beat, and tears welled in my eyes. Before us stood my younger sister, Sarah, She had tragically lost her life in the car crash with Grandpa years ago. If you've ever shared a home with a young child, you understand the profound void left in their absence. Their influence permeates every aspect of life, and when Sarah passed away, nothing remained the same. And yet, here she stood, uniged and unscathed. Overwhelmed, I broke down in tears. Glancing around, I noticed that my entire family was in tears, and Sarah appeared deeply troubled by the emotional upheaval. "Did I do something wrong, Mommy?" she inquired. "Of course not, honey," my mother reassured. "We've all just missed you so much." Sarah entered the house, and we all gathered for a heartfelt conversation. She appeared exactly as she had been back then. After around 30 minutes of catching up, Sarah turned her attention toward my parents. "Mom, Dad, can I show you something?" she asked. "Of course you can, sweetheart," my mother replied, her eyes still glistening with tears. Sarah enthusiastically jumped off the couch. "Great! Come with me!" she exclaimed, grabbing both of my parents' hands. In that moment, a realization struck me. My grandma was still upstairs, entirely unaware that Sarah had returned. I ascended the stairs to fetch Grandma, reaching the top only to encounter my grandfather emerging quietly from her room, gently closing the door behind him. Inquiring about Grandma's whereabouts, he disclosed that she was resting. When I suggested she join us downstairs, he replied that it wasn't feasible, assuring me that there would be ample time for Grandma to reunite with Sarah. Excitement surged within me, and I asked, "Does this mean you and Sarah are staying for good?" Grandpa simply smiled, accompanying me downstairs. In the living room, my older siblings were engrossed in conversation when Sarah, skipping in from around the corner, appeared alone. "Where's Mom and Dad?" queried. Sarah looked up with a smile and replied, "Well, when we went down to the basement, they started kissing and hugging. So they told me to go upstairs, and that's exactly what I did. Something felt amiss. I couldn't fathom my mother leaving Sarah's side, even for a moment tonight. However, everyone else appeared unperturbed by the situation. Grandpa dismissed my concern, laughing it off, and claimed that adults were peculiar, assuring me that understanding would come with time. He then turned to my brother, announcing a gift as compensation for missed birthdays and Christmases. Extending his hand to my brother, Grandpa urged, "Come with me." Suspicion crept in, and I questioned the whereabouts of the gift. Grandpa cryptically replied, "Oh, don't you worry, you'll get yours soon enough." Alarmed, I warned my brother not to go, but he disregarded my pleas and took my grandfather's hand as they disappeared down the hall. Claiming they had been downstairs for a while, she reached out for my other sister, Meg. "Come with me," she invited. Meg reached for Sarah, and I instinctively slapped her hand away, cautioning, "Don't go with her," I shouted. Meg brushed off my warning and took Sarah's hand, venturing downstairs to the basement. Grandpa approached me, locking eyes, and said, "I've got your gift ready now, Billy. Come with me." I sprinted past him, retreating into my room and hastily shutting the door. Confused and panicked, I lacked a phone to call for help. All I could do was wait, torn between the fear of them breaking in and the hope they might leave. Echoing footsteps reverberated down the hall, halting just outside my door. Grandpa's voice entreated me to come out for my present. Minutes later, Sarah joined in, pleading with me to join her in play. "Why don't you love me anymore, Billy?" she cried. The internal struggle was excruciating, but my survival instinct prevailed. I resisted the emotional plea, keeping the door firmly shut. As the clock struck 12, an eerie silence enveloped the house. Peering beneath the door, my grandfather's shadow was no longer cast. Placing my ear to the door, I strained to hear any sounds but was met with absolute quiet. The fear that my family might be hurt propelled me to take action. Check, call for help, do something. Taking a deep breath to steady myself, I cautiously opened the door. The hallway was desolate, Across the hall, through an open door, my brother lay motionless on the ground, his pallor alarming, and he showed no signs of breathing. Rushing to him, I checked his wrist and neck for a pulse, finding nothing. One of his hands was tinged black, resembling a dip in tar. Racing upstairs, I discovered my grandmother in a similar state, pale, not breathing, with blackened hands. My heart raced. I knew I had to go to the basement, but the dread held me back. I sat there, paralyzed, before resolving to face the truth. The descent to the basement felt interminable, cold, each step an eternity. When I reached the bottom, my fears materialized. My parents and older sister lay on the floor, pale and lifeless. Tears streamed down my face, reminiscent of the day I lost my little sister and grandpa. Suddenly, a sinister voice pierced the air. "You stupid boy." The voice resonated with evil, akin to every demon in horror movies and something far worse. I turned around to find Sarah, but she was different. Hollow eye sockets, a mouth devoid of lips, replaced by fangs. "You have no more family, no more loved ones. They are now mine, and you will live the rest of your life alone," the monstrous voice declared. I stood there, utterly stunned and in shock. The creature continued, "You will die somewhere all alone and afraid, and you will never see your family again, ever." Pausing, it extended its hand, offering, "Unless you come with me, you can be with all of us again, forever." I wish I could say I kept my distance, told her to leave my house, but the truth gripped me. I felt it deep in my bones. I would never see my family again if I didn't go with her. I was just a scared, foolish kid yearning for his mom. Shaking, I stood and extended my hands. Slowly, Sarah's mouth formed a smile as I approached. Then, a noise from upstairs disrupted the moment. The clock chimed 1 o'clock. Glancing up for a fleeting moment, I heard a distant scream. When I refocused, Sarah had vanished. I called the police, and an investigation ensued, but nothing was ever truly explained or resolved. Eventually, I ended up living with my aunt and uncle in another state. Years later, as an adult, I sold the house and everything in it, using the proceeds to put myself through school upon graduating. This Halloween, if you encounter a loved one who has passed away, please resist letting them into your home. Refrain from taking their hand and never follow them.